In the city, Eleanor writes about how sad her life is on sheets of paper because she cannot tell anyone about her secret. She is, in fact, a 200-year-old vampire. After writing, she always throws the papers away, and one day one of those crumpled balls of paper falls out the window. An old man picks it up and reads it, discovering her true nature. He's not scared, however. Instead, he goes to her and asks for a favor. After taking her to his house and showing some old memories of his youth, the man tells Eleanor that he's tired of living and that he is ready. She then feeds on him, killing him. Meanwhile, Eleanor's mother, Clara, who is also a vampire, is working in a bar as a dancer. The man she is dancing for tries to get a little handsy, so Clara attacks him, earning her boss's fury. She refuses to leave without being paid and tries to take money from the cash register, but at that moment, a man named Werner appears, looking for her. Clara recognizes him and gets scared, so she breaks a bottle over his head and starts to run away. Werner chases her, then she enters a market and knocks some things to the floor before escaping through the back door. After a lot of running, they reach a roof and Clara finds herself cornered, so she jumps through the skylight and falls into a bouncy castle, scaring all the children. This allows Werner to finally catch up to her and start asking about Eleanor, so she takes him to her apartment. While he complains about Eleanor being an abomination, Clara pretends to clean his wound and takes the opportunity to use a garrote to kill him. When Eleanor arrives home, she freaks out upon seeing the body and gets angry at her mother because they have to leave again. Clara reminds her that she is doing this to keep her safe. Then, after washing up and packing their bags, she sets the apartment on fire and they leave. They stop by the side of the road to hitchhike, and after a truck picks them up, Clara comforts Eleanor with a song. The truck takes the two out of the city and drops them off in the middle of the countryside. After a lot of walking and nights sleeping on the grass, they finally arrive at a new coastal town where Eleanor sees a group of girls passing by and thinks they have been there before. However, Clara denies it and leaves her at the amusement park, telling her to have fun while she goes to make some money. Instead of staying at the park, Eleanor enters a restaurant with a piano and begins to play it with admirable skill. The waiter, Frank, praises the way she plays and tries to talk to her, but she barely says a word and leaves. Moments later, when his shift ends, he finds Eleanor sitting nearby and tries to talk to her again. This time, she says a few words but refuses Frank's number before walking away. Meanwhile, at the amusement park, Clara hides inside a ride to change into more provocative clothes. When she comes out, she immediately attracts Noel's attention and takes him inside the ride for a paid, intimate moment. However, he suddenly has a breakdown and cannot perform well. It turns out he recently lost his mother. Clara offers comfort in a friendly manner and discovers that Noel's mother left behind a guest house, so she convinces him to take her there. On their way out, they run into Eleanor, and Clara says she has finally found their knight in shining armor. Noel takes them to the abandoned hotel and allows them to live there for the time being, giving Eleanor her own room and showing sympathy for a woman who is doing what she can to survive and support her little sister, which is the cover story she told him. Eleanor falls asleep and dreams of the day Clara took her to a mysterious cave on an island. There she met another version of herself who bit her, and that was how she became a vampire. When Eleanor wakes up, she can hear Clara and Noel in intimate moments in the next room. Meanwhile, two mysterious police officers begin investigating the burned apartment and the body ends up on the news. Eleanor gets worried, but Clara promises that everything is fine and that they can stay there for a while. Later, while watching the sea, Eleanor remembers a bad moment she went through before becoming a vampire. Captain Ruthven, who was very ill, had taken her from the orphanage and confessed that her mother was not really dead. Then Ruthven started taking advantage of her. Back in the present, Noel comes to see how she is doing, and she tries to tell the truth, but Clara quickly stops her and takes her away, reminding her that keeping the cover story is important for their survival. Sometime later, Eleanor hears Clara convincing Noel that they could make a lot more money by using the rooms as a brothel instead of a guest house. Tired of this, she goes for a walk and finds a young girl tripping on substances near the beach. Since the girl is dying, she takes the opportunity to share a story. When Clara was a young girl, she met Captain Ruthven and Royal Navy Midshipman Darvel. Darvel tried to warn her about Ruthven, but she ignored him and left with the captain anyway. Unfortunately, the warning was right. Ruthven took Clara to a brothel and, after taking advantage of her, left her there as a new worker. Eventually, she got pregnant and gave birth to Eleanor. But since children were not allowed in the brothel, Clara left her in a private orphanage. The next morning, Eleanor is writing the story again and throws the papers into the sea. At that moment, she sees the same girls from the other day and begins to follow them, realizing that they all came from the same orphanage as her. This coastal town is the same one where her mother grew up. Eleanor is so distracted that she accidentally bumps into Frank, who falls and hurts his hand. Feeling guilty, she gives Frank a handkerchief and helps him get home while noticing his hand bleeding more than it should. As soon as they see him, Frank's parents freak out and take him to the hospital in their car. However, Eleanor is paralyzed at the door because Frank dropped the handkerchief that is soaked in blood and she's drawn to it. As soon as the family leaves, she picks up the handkerchief and drinks Frank's blood. Meanwhile, the same two police officers find the body of the dead old man. The next day, Clara sees the same girl Eleanor had met crying because a man chose another girl over her. Clara approaches the man and kisses him before taking him to the beach to have intimate moments with him. But while he is distracted, she feeds on him and kills him. After that, she goes back to the girl and offers her a deal. Meanwhile, Eleanor goes to the hospital to visit Frank, who looks very weak. There is a tube connected to his body pumping blood, and Eleanor is tempted by it, but fortunately, Frank's mother arrives before things can get out of hand. She explains that Frank has leukemia and takes blood thinners. That is why he bled so much. She thanks Eleanor for her help, but Eleanor asks her not to tell Frank that she came, and then she leaves. On her way out, she sees a woman in her hospital bed suffering during the last moments of her life. When she sees Eleanor, she calls her an angel, and Eleanor feeds on her to free her from her pain. Later, when Eleanor gets home, she discovers that Clara has already brought in 2 escorts and is making money off them. She complains about this, but Clara reminds her that someone has to bring in the money. Sometime later, Eleanor decides to attend the same classes that Frank attends. The teacher Kevin has them do an exercise to extract creativity from their personal experiences. Eleanor remembers the night she was in the orphanage and Clara came back to take her away for good, so she describes to the teacher the feelings of reuniting with a lost mother. Frank shares the story of an imaginary friend he had as a child, saying he believed it was a ghost. When class ends, Kevin gives an assignment. They must write an essay titled "I Am," and everything in it must be true. After class, Eleanor and Frank go out together and he confesses that he knows she visited him at the hospital, saying his mother thinks Eleanor is his girlfriend. Frank asks her to date him for real and tries to kiss her, but she cannot live lying to him and runs away. After that, Eleanor sits on the beach to write the story again. Back when she was 6 years old, Clara was sick with tuberculosis but kept it hidden to continue working and send money to the orphanage. One night, Ruthven hired Clara to satisfy all his friends in the room. In the morning, Darvel appeared saying he had changed a lot and Ruthven was shocked to see him alive. He announced that he had great news and that he would bring it later that night. After Darvel left, Ruthven took his anger out on Clara, taking advantage of her as he always did when he was in town. As soon as Eleanor finishes writing the story, instead of throwing it away, this time she takes it to Frank so he can finally know the truth about her. Right after satisfying himself with Clara, Ruthven told her how Darvel had been severely ill and became obsessed with finding a solution in the library. There he was suddenly approached by Savella and received a small box with a map to an island that contained a sanctuary with healing powers. Darvel said it was his dying wish to go there, so Ruthven took him on his boat. The place was very scary and rumored to be haunted, but Darvel entered the cave anyway. Outside, Ruthven suddenly saw a flock of animals flying away and the waterfall water turning red, so he checked inside the cave and found Darvel dead. Terrified, he fled and took all of Darvel's properties as his own. After finishing reading the story, Frank goes to the hotel to see Eleanor, but it is Clara who opens the door and sends him away to protect her daughter. Meanwhile, Noel tells Eleanor that he is not happy with Clara's business choice, and she tries to tell the truth again, but they are interrupted by her mother, who informs them of Frank's visit. Eleanor promises that he is just a classmate working with her on an assignment and then goes looking for him. Frank praises her writing but reminds her that the assignment was about the truth. And when she says she wrote it so he would know her better, he assumes that Eleanor is describing some trauma she went through, disguising it as a fictional story. Hurt by his disbelief, Eleanor walks away while Clara watches her from the roof. After that, she goes to the restaurant and finds a blind woman playing the piano, so she helps her get home and feeds on her. Early the next morning, the body Clara left on the beach is found by the mysterious police officers, who reveal themselves to be Darvel and Savella, both vampires. Eleanor goes to school and Frank avoids her, but he also decides to hand her story over to Kevin. After reading it, Kevin takes it to the counselor, Morag, pointing out that the prose is beautiful, but also that the way it was written might indicate that Eleanor is hiding some real traumas and crimes in the story. Morag is amazed by the fact that the whole thing was handwritten and begins to read. When Ruthven and Clara met Darvel again, Ruthven gave back the keys and Darvel shared his story. After entering the cave, he met another version of himself who killed him. Moments later, when he woke up, he was a vampire. Then Sabella, who turned out to be the leader of the vampire brotherhood, gave him a person to feed on. Now Darvel wanted to give the same gift to Ruthven and handed over the box with the map. Moments later, Kevin goes to the hotel looking for Eleanor's guardian, only to find Noel without clothes and all the night workers running around, which makes him worry about her even more. He leaves a letter for Clara and says they should have a meeting soon or he will call social services and the police. Meanwhile, Morag calls Eleanor into her office to discuss the story. It turns out that when she had the chance, Clara shot Ruthven in the leg and stole the map before escaping on a horse. That is where the story ends because that is all Clara told her. Morag begins to question the story and wonders why Eleanor does not kill her now. She explains that she only kills people who are ready to die, which are usually the elderly. After that, Eleanor goes to the school's music room to play the piano, and Frank finds her to ask a few questions about how vampirism works. She explains that she only kills people who want it, and after Frank calls her pathetic, he invites her to his birthday party, which she accepts. Later, she takes the box with the map and brings it to Frank's house. She is the only guest, so Frank takes her to his room and offers his blood, but she cannot do that to him. Meanwhile, Clara goes to see Kevin and upon checking Eleanor's writing, remembers the day she arrived at the island and became a vampire enjoying the red water of the waterfalls. Then she jumped into the sea and swam back to the beach where she fed on the first man she saw. At that moment, Darvel found her and took her to Sabella and Werner, who were also vampires of the Brotherhood. They were not happy with the situation because the Brotherhood only accepted men, and to make matters worse, Clara did not come from a good social standing. After an argument, Sabella allowed her to live, but she would not be part of their vampire club, so she went looking for the only family she had, Eleanor. However, when she looked through the window, she saw Ruthven taking Eleanor away to get revenge for the stolen map. When she found them, Ruthven had already mistreated her daughter, so Clara killed him for it. Knowing that Ruthven had likely transmitted his disease to Eleanor, she took her to the island so she could become a vampire as well. In the present, Clara explains that turning Eleanor into a vampire was against the rules because a woman was not allowed to create. That is why the Brotherhood has been hunting them all these years. Then she proceeds to feed on Kevin and kills him. Meanwhile, Eleanor and Frank are talking on his bed and they finally kiss. The excitement causes her to accidentally hurt him, so she panics and runs away. Frank goes after her and explains that he is going to die of leukemia anyway, so he wants to be a vampire. Eleanor drinks a little blood from the wound and then tells him to wait for her. Meanwhile, Morag finds Kevin's body at school. Moments later, Eleanor goes to the hotel to get her things and finds Noel, who confesses that Clara is not happy because he sent the workers home and is cleaning everything up. She warns him that she's leaving, and suddenly Clara walks in furiously, yelling at Eleanor for putting them in danger with her story. Eleanor says she didn't protect her but rather isolated her. Then she pushes her while saying she hates her before running away. Clara runs after her and causes the elevator to get stuck with her daughter inside, and when Noel tries to stop her, he ends up accidentally falling down the shaft, dying instantly as his body hits the top of the elevator cabin. Then Clara leaves to silence Frank. At the same time, Darvel and Sabella are talking to Morag, who tells them about Kevin's death and Eleanor's story. At Frank's house, he finds Clara waiting for him on the porch, and she quickly grabs him by the neck. Meanwhile, Eleanor hears Noel's phone vibrating and reaches out to the body to grab it. Then she uses it to call Frank. Clara answers his phone and tells her it is too late, but their argument is suddenly interrupted by the arrival of Sabella, Darvel, and Morag. Sabella takes the phone and tells Clara that they are going to take the girl, while Darvel breaks into the elevator and drags Eleanor out. Desperate to save her daughter, Clara starts running until she finds the car and jumps on top of it, breaking the front windshield to warn Eleanor that they are going to kill her. Sabella starts driving like a madman until Clara falls off. Then he backs up to run her over, but she gets out of the way quickly. Morag is panicking about the whole situation, so Sabella finally gets tired of her and kills her. After that, he gets out of the car and goes looking for Clara, who comes out of hiding and attacks him. At that moment, Darvel appears and grabs Clara to handcuff her before bringing out a blade for the execution. She begs for mercy, admitting she should have chosen him instead of Ruthven. Sabella grabs her head, but instead of killing Clara, Darvel decapitates the other man. After mother and daughter reunite, Darvel confesses that he has been following Clara for years precisely to protect her from the Brotherhood. They burn Sabella's body and Clara has a conversation with Eleanor, giving her some money and finally letting her go to have her own life. Clara and Darvel leave together to start something of their own, while Eleanor and Frank escape on a boat. Eventually, they arrive at the island and she sends him to the cave so he can become a vampire too, dyeing all the waterfalls red, thus ending Byzantium, the 2012 horror and fantasy film. And I will see you in the next video.